If the mini LED TV blooms, I'm not going to buy it. I hear that a lot. We hear that a lot. Now, why does people feel that way? If I buy a mini LED TV, I'm going to see blooming and it's going to ruin my experience. In this video, I'm going to go ahead and cover the Sony X95K, the 85-inch version, just to show if this TV really has blooming. Now, if you really want to know the answer is yes. The Sony X95K does have blooming. Well, pretty much any mini LED TV for 2022 has blooming. But the question you need to ask yourself, are you going to notice it while viewing content or playing games? That's one thing I'm going to go ahead and cover with this TV. The controversial Sony X95K. We had some negative reviews, to neutral reviews, to positive reviews. Man, it seemed like we have reviews going everywhere with the Sony X95K. But one thing that I have noticed is for the Sony X95K, if you're looking at the 65-inch or the 75-inch, yeah, you will have a different experience from the 85-inch version. So what you're looking at right now is the Sony 85-inch version of the X95K. And I could tell you, as of now, I don't notice blooming on this TV unless you look for it. And what I mean by that is if you pause a content and you physically go to the screen to actually look for the blooming, it's pretty challenging to see. But that depends on the content. Now, what you're looking at right now is a recording from Gotham Knights. This is on the YouTube, playing on YouTube. So you are going to see a little bit of compression. So it's supposed to be a 4K, but at the same time, playing this SDR content, I see no type of blooming, especially when it comes to those highlights, when it comes to the bright scenes where you see a lot of lights in the trailer. But that's just coming from me on the 85-inch version. There has been some other owners who mentioned as well that the blooming is there, but it's very, very minimum when it comes to the 85-inch version. And so this is something that I want to go ahead and show to everyone. So I was able to take some pictures. One is from Pacific Rim, which is for some mini LED TVs or LED TVs is a very challenging movie to capture, especially when it comes to this type of technology. I also did Batman versus Superman, especially when you look at the specular highlight scenes. And so far, I could tell you this, I haven't seen any blooming with this specific content that you're looking at right now. But depending on depending on the movie, you will see a little bit of blooming here and there. You may occasionally see some lifted blacks when it comes to the black bars of 16:9 aspect ratio. But what you're seeing right now, as the pictures that I'm showing, is what I actually see from the TV. Now, I try to do the best I can of capturing these pictures. It's very challenging because this TV is bright, and I didn't think it was going to be as bright as it is, but looking at looking at the TV and looking at the content, if anyone is curious or interested in buying this TV, this is something to look forward to. Now, blooming aside, one thing that I want to go over, especially looking at it chapter 2, is on the Sony X95K, the 85-inch version. One thing that kind of struck me was the not only just the blacks, but the shadow detail in this image. And this is one thing that I wasn't able to see on the Samsung QN900B, the 65-inch version. That's one TV that I noticed when I was playing this movie and a couple of other dark content movies. that there is some crushing or black crush when it comes to content. And one thing in particular when I'm watching it, chapter 2, which you're looking at right now, some of the highlights or some of the areas where you're looking at this gate, the QN900B shows some crushing in this area. In this particular picture, one thing I can say about the Sony X95K, the 85-inch version, they did a really good job on this. I didn't see no type of blooming, especially when it comes to this hand. And I even tried to expose the camera on the next screen, that I didn't see no blooming around the hand. And if you look at the background and aspect ratio, the 16:9 aspect ratio, no blooming or lifted blacks. In the next set of pictures, I'm going to go ahead and show the Sony X95K, the Samsung QN900B, and the Sony A90J. So if you look at the Samsung QN900B, the 65-inch version, you do see some blooming around the lights compared to the Sony X95K, the 85-inch version. I don't see the blooming, and in fact, I even see more shadow detail in this image. Now, the next picture that I'm going to show is the Sony A90J. Now, looking at the Sony A90J, now one thing I noticed is I don't see the details or shadow details compared to the Sony X95K, and that's one thing that I have noticed when I was doing the comparison between the Samsung QN900B and the Sony A90J. And so that's something just to keep in mind. But the X95K, the 85-inch version, did an amazing job in that area. Now, when it comes to color and detail and absolute blacks, the Sony A90J all day is the better competitor. So, especially when it comes to the infinite contrast and absolute blacks and the color reproduction, the Sony A90J does a better job. So, I just want to throw that out there, but I thought it was pretty good on the X95K part, especially when it comes to that shadow detail and the blacks and the blooming department, where it is very minimal with that image. And that's something I just wanted to show to everyone. So let me go ahead and wrap this video up. But when it comes to the Sony X95K, the 85-inch version, I can't speak for the 65 or 75-inch, but on the 85-inch version, when it comes to blooming, it is minimum. And when it comes to lifted blacks on the 16:9 aspect ratio, or even when it comes to the narrow black bars, the IMAX Enhance, you do see a little bit of lifted blacks. You do see a little bit of blooming. But when you're watching actual content, it's very minimum unless you're really looking for it. But for my viewing experience, I have to analyze each scene to see if I see blooming. But the majority of the time, I could say 90% of the time, I do not see it. So that's one thing I just want to point out to everyone. Let me know what everyone thinks about the Sony X95K, the Samsung QN900B. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you think about getting this TV for Black Friday, or you're still on the fence when it comes to mini LED TVs, just let me know. Until next time, I'll see everyone on the next video. Take care.